Here's a blunt, science-first opening after age 60. The body becomes biased against building muscle, a phenomenon researchers call anabolic resistance. That doesn't mean you're doomed, it means the rules change. What used to stimulate growth in your 30 now needs a smarter, slightly louder signal, more protein at the right times, heavier but sensible resistance work, and a dashboard of habits that support recovery and neural recruitment. Why this matters is simple. Muscle isn't just about looks. It's your metabolic engine, your fall prevention system, and the single strongest predictor of independence as you age. Now for the click-worthy twist, you'll want to keep per ordinary serving. Certain vegetables, especially soy in the form of edamame, deliver more usable protein than a single egg. 1 cup of cooked edamame gives far more grams of protein than 1 large egg, and it brings a favorable amino acid profile and fiber to the table. That's not clickbait, it's tactical nutrition, using plant-forward options to meet the higher per meal protein thresholds older adults need. Here's what the research shows. Older adults display blunted muscle protein synthesis after small protein meals. Katsanos and colleagues are often cited here, and randomized trials have demonstrated that modest increases in per meal protein or switching to concentrated leucine-rich proteins restores a robust anabolic response. What's happening in your brain when this occurs is twofold. First, motor unit recruitment improves with progressive loading. Your nervous system learns to tap more fibers. And second, motivational and reward circuits reinforce habits when progress is measurable and immediate. In plain terms, your brain needs clear wins to keep you consistent, and your muscles need clear, consistent stimuli to grow. A simple tool to apply is this. Treat each main meal as an opportunity. Aim for a protein dose that reliably crosses the leucine threshold for older adults. Pair it with a strength session that emphasizes progressive overload, and favor protein sources including edamame or concentrated plant proteins that are practical and palatable. When most people think of muscle loss after 60, they imagine it's simply a matter of not exercising enough or eating poorly. But the reality is more nuanced and more fascinating. Biologists call it anabolic resistance, the reduced ability of older muscles to respond to protein and exercise with new growth. It's not that your muscles can't build anymore, it's that the signal has to be stronger and clearer to break through the background noise of aging physiology. Here's what the research shows. In younger adults, even a modest amount of protein, say 15-20 grams, can trigger a robust spike in muscle protein synthesis. But studies by Katsanos and colleagues at the University of Texas found that in older adults that same dose often produces a muted response. The machinery for growth is still there, but it needs more activation energy. In practical terms, this means that if you're over 60, a small omelet might not be enough. You need a higher per meal protein dose, often 25-30 grams, with a sufficient amount of the amino acid leucine to switch the muscle building machinery back on. Think of it like a dimmer switch. In your 30, a small twist lights up the room. In your 60, you need a bigger turn to get the same brightness. The key isn't despair, it's learning how to twist harder, but in smarter ways. And here's another fascinating layer. Your nervous system plays a huge role in this process. Muscle fibers don't activate themselves, they rely on electrical signals from your brain. With age, the number of motor units declines, meaning fewer wires to spark those fibers. But progressive resistance training has been shown to rewire, re-recruit, and even preserve existing motor units. When you lift, push, or pull something challenging, you're not just training muscle, you're retraining the brain-to-muscle conversation. That's why older adults who lift weights regularly demonstrate not only stronger muscles, but faster reaction times and better balance. Their nervous system learns to fire more efficiently. A simple tool to apply is this: upgrade your protein dose at each meal. Instead of nibbling small amounts of protein throughout the day, aim for a solid serving that crosses the leucine threshold. Pair that with strength training that's progressive, meaning you slowly add weight, reps, or difficulty over time. This creates the two essential signals: enough raw building material from protein and enough neural activation from exercise. Let me ask you, have you noticed that after a light meal, you don't feel that sense of sustained energy? But after a protein-rich meal, you're sharper and steadier. That's not just your stomach talking, it's your muscles and brain receiving a stronger anabolic signal. The good news: anabolic resistance is not a wall, it's a barrier you can climb with the right tools. Older adults who implement these strategies often build muscle at rates similar to younger adults in controlled trials. That means it's never too late. The system is waiting for the right inputs. For decades, eggs have been held up as the gold standard of affordable, accessible protein. And to be fair, one large egg gives you about 6 grams of protein along with essential nutrients like choline and vitamin D. But here's the surprising fact. If you're over 60 and serious about preserving or rebuilding muscle, certain vegetables, especially edamame or young soybeans, deliver more usable protein per serving than an egg. Let's break this down. 1 cup of cooked edamame provides around 17 grams of protein, nearly 3 times what you'd get from a single egg. But here's the kicker. It also contains all 9 essential amino acids, qualifying it as a complete protein. That means your muscles get the full package of building blocks they need. And unlike eggs, edamame also delivers fiber, which stabilizes blood sugar and supports gut health, a critical piece of the longevity puzzle. Here's what the research shows. A 2020 review in Nutrients compared animal and plant proteins for muscle health. The conclusion? While animal proteins like whey and eggs are efficient, plant proteins, when consumed in higher doses, can be equally effective at stimulating muscle protein synthesis. In fact, studies on soy protein show comparable outcomes to animal protein for maintaining lean mass, especially when the total daily intake is high enough. Think of it this way. Eggs are like a quick phone charger, useful, convenient, but limited. Edamame is more like a power bank. It not only charges you up with protein, but also keeps your system running with fiber, antioxidants, and phytoestrogens that support heart and bone health. This matters because aging doesn't just reduce muscle, it also increases inflammation and oxidative stress. By choosing protein sources with added anti-inflammatory benefits, you're tackling multiple aspects of aging at once. A simple tool to apply is this: swap 1 egg-based meal this week for a bowl of edamame. You can steam them, sprinkle a little sea salt, or toss them into salads and stir fries. For those who enjoy variety, roasted edamame snacks offer a crunchy, high-protein alternative to chips. Now let's connect this to behavior and psychology. Many people over 60 have deeply ingrained eating patterns. Breakfast is often light and protein poor, like toast or a small egg, but if you want to reverse muscle loss, it may be time to rethink traditions. Ask yourself, is my breakfast giving me enough protein to actually signal muscle growth, or am I underfeeding my body's most vital tissue? And if this insight is helping you rethink your nutrition, consider subscribing, because every week we break down science like this into practical strategies you can actually live by. One of the biggest mistakes I see in older adults trying to maintain muscle is not just what they eat, but when they eat it. Many people load most of their protein at dinner, a large piece of chicken or fish, while breakfast and lunch remain light, often just bread, cereal, or a single egg. The science shows this is a recipe for understimulating your muscles for most of the day. Here's what the research shows. Studies out of McGill University and the University of Texas have found that evenly distributing protein across meals leads to greater muscle protein synthesis than skewing it heavily toward dinner. Why? Because your muscles need a threshold dose of amino acids at each feeding opportunity to activate growth. Miss that threshold at breakfast and lunch, and you've essentially wasted 2 chances to build. Think of it like watering a plant. If you dump all the water on it once at night, the soil can't absorb it efficiently, most of it drains away. But if you water it evenly, morning, noon, and evening, the roots get steady nourishment and the plant thrives. Your muscles work the same way. This is where the protein pulse strategy comes in. Instead of grazing on tiny amounts of protein or saving it all for later, you intentionally pulse at least 25-30 grams into each main meal. That's roughly 1 cup of edamame, or a mix of plant and animal sources designed to hit the leucine threshold each time. Now let's add the neuroscience layer. Habit formation is tightly linked to timing cues. Your brain loves consistency. When breakfast reliably includes a protein-rich food, your dopamine system begins to expect the energy and satiety that follow. Over time, this anticipation makes the behavior automatic. It's not about willpower anymore, it's about wiring. A simple tool to apply is this: audit your meals for protein distribution. Write down yesterday's meals and circle which ones cross the 25-gram threshold. If you only circle dinner, you've just diagnosed your problem. Tomorrow, experiment with adding a high-protein breakfast, maybe edamame hummus on whole grain toast, or a soy protein smoothie. See how you feel by midday. Have you noticed how your focus tends to dip in the late morning or mid-afternoon? Often, that's not just low energy, it's inadequate protein failing to stabilize blood sugar and neurotransmitter production. When you pulse protein evenly, you stabilize not only your muscles, but also your brain chemistry. Here's the empowering part. Timing is a variable you control. Even without changing the type of food you eat, simply redistributing it can unlock new energy, sharper focus, and muscle preservation. When most people hear strength training, they think it's just about building muscle. But the deeper science shows something even more fascinating. Resistance training is a neural upgrade. Your muscles are the hardware, yes, but the software that controls them, your brain and nervous system, is what actually determines how strong, stable, and resilient you feel. Here's what the research shows. With age, we naturally lose motor units, the bundles of muscle fibers, and the neurons that control them. This is one reason why balance declines, grip weakens, and falls become more common in the 70 and 80. But studies from McMaster University and elsewhere have found that resistance training can recruit dormant motor units, preserve neural connections, and even promote new synaptic efficiency between brain and muscle. In plain language, lifting weights trains your nervous system to fire more muscle fibers faster and more effectively. Think of it this way. Imagine your muscles as a light bulb with hundreds of little filaments. When you're young, almost all of them light up brightly. With age, some dim or go offline. Strength training is like rewiring the circuit board, so more filaments glow again. That's why older adults who train consistently not only regain strength, but also improve balance, walking speed, and reaction time. A simple tool to apply is this. Prioritize compound movements that challenge multiple joints, things like squats, rows, or push-ups, even in modified form. These exercises require your brain to coordinate large groups of muscles together, strengthening neural pathways. Start light, focus on form, and gradually progress. Here's another insight. When you lift something heavy, your body doesn't just adapt physically. Your brain interprets the act as a signal of capability. That confidence carries into daily life. Climbing stairs feels easier. Standing up from a chair feels natural again. And psychologically, you start to see yourself not as aging and declining, but as training and improving. That mindset shift is powerful medicine in itself. Ask yourself, have you ever noticed how energized and focused you feel after a workout compared to the sluggishness after a sedentary day? That's your nervous system flooded with neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, rewired for resilience. If you're finding value in this and want more science-backed strategies for aging powerfully, make sure to subscribe and join this community. Each week, we share evidence-based tools to keep your body and mind sharp. Muscle isn't built in the gym. It's built during recovery. And yet, this is the part most people over 60 underestimate. You can eat the right protein and train consistently, but if your recovery systems are impaired, muscle synthesis stalls. Here's what the research shows. Sleep, stress, and circadian rhythm directly regulate key anabolic hormones. Growth hormone, which plays a critical role in tissue repair, is released in pulses during deep sleep. Testosterone and estrogen, both vital for muscle and bone health, follow circadian patterns, and cortisol, the stress hormone, if chronically elevated, can actively break down muscle tissue. Think of your body like a construction site. Protein provides the bricks, training lays down the scaffolding, but hormones are the workers that actually assemble the building. If they're absent or overworked, progress halts. Aging naturally shifts these hormonal rhythms. Deep sleep becomes harder to maintain, stress resilience decreases, and nighttime awakenings are common. But here's the empowering truth. Small behavioral adjustments can restore much of this balance. A simple tool to apply is to set a consistent wind-down ritual before bed. Research from the University of California shows that exposure to bright light before sleep suppresses melatonin, delaying deep rest. By dimming lights, turning off screens, and practicing even 10 minutes of breathing or stretching, you cue your brain to enter recovery mode. Nutrition also plays a role. Magnesium-rich foods like pumpkin seeds or leafy greens support relaxation, while avoiding heavy meals late at night helps preserve deep sleep cycles. And don't underestimate stress management. Mindfulness practices, journaling, or even daily walks lower cortisol, creating an internal environment where muscles can rebuild. Have you noticed how much weaker or stiffer you feel after a night of broken sleep? That's not just fatigue. Is your body literally missing the hormonal signals for repair? Flip that around. Imagine stringing together a week of high-quality nights. Your muscles recover faster, your brain is sharper, and even your mood lifts. The takeaway is this: recovery isn't passive. It's an active, trainable part of the muscle building equation. Just as you schedule workouts and meals, schedule recovery practices. That's how you align your body's chemistry with your goals. If there's one truth I want you to remember, it's this: consistency beats intensity. Especially after 60, it's not about the hardest workout or the perfect diet. It's about building a rhythm your brain and body can sustain. Here's what the research shows. Habit formation depends on dopamine, the brain's learning and motivation chemical. But dopamine isn't released just from massive wins. It spikes from small, consistent rewards. That means doing a short strength session 3 times a week can create more lasting momentum than one exhausting workout followed by burnout. Think of it like compound interest. Each small deposit, a protein-rich meal, a walk, a resistance session may not look like much, but over weeks and months it accumulates into massive returns, stronger muscles, sharper focus, more independence. Here's where psychology gives us a framework. B.J. Fogg's research at Stanford shows that habits stick when they're anchored to existing routines and celebrated with emotion. For example, after brushing your teeth in the morning, you might immediately do 10 chair squats. The cue is brushing, the action is squats, and the celebration is the subtle pride you feel afterward. Repeat that often enough and it wires in. A simple tool to apply is this: create micro wins around your protein and training habits. Instead of focusing only on the scale or long-term muscle growth, which can feel slow, track small victories, how many grams of protein you hit today, how many reps you added this week, or even how many days you showed up. Each check mark reinforces your brain's belief that I am the kind of person who takes care of my body. Let me ask you, have you ever felt that wave of motivation after ticking something off a list? That's your dopamine system rewarding completion. Build your health strategy around that principle, and suddenly consistency feels natural rather than forced. And here's the most powerful insight. Aging is often framed as a slow decline, but the brain is still plastic. It can learn, adapt, and change at any age. Each time you repeat a positive behavior, you're literally reshaping neural circuits for strength, energy, and resilience. If this resonates with you, consider subscribing and joining this community of people who refuse to accept decline as inevitable. Together we turn science into strength and habits into vitality. We've covered a lot of ground today, but let's zoom out and see the bigger picture. After 60, your body changes. Muscle doesn't respond to small doses of protein or light activity the way it once did. But that's not the end of the story. The science is clear: with the right inputs, muscle can be rebuilt, strength can be regained, and vitality can be restored. We began with anabolic resistance, that natural decline in muscle response. Instead of seeing it as a dead end, you now know it's simply a higher threshold to cross. The solution is smarter protein dosing and consistent strength training. We then saw how edamame and other plant proteins can outcompete eggs, offering more protein per serving, plus added benefits like fiber and antioxidants. Nutrition is not just about fuel, it's about choosing foods that work with your biology to slow aging. The protein pulse strategy showed us why timing matters. By spreading protein evenly across meals, you give your muscles 3 growth opportunities each day instead of 1. That's not just dietary planning, that's muscle insurance. Strength training emerged as a neural upgrade, not just a muscle-building tool. Every lift, push, and pull is a signal to your brain to recruit more fibers, preserve motor units, and keep your balance sharp. We also explored the critical role of recovery and hormonal support. Without deep sleep, stress control, and circadian alignment, your muscles can't rebuild. Recovery isn't rest, it's active, structured, and essential. Finally, we looked at the psychology of consistency. Small wins, anchored habits, and dopamine-driven feedback loops are the real engines of long-term success. You don't need perfection, you need rhythm, repetition, and rewards. So here's my challenge to you today. Don't just absorb this information. Apply one tool. Maybe it's adding a cup of edamame to lunch. Maybe it's doing 10 minutes of resistance training. Or maybe it's setting a bedtime ritual tonight. Pick one, act on it, and notice how you feel tomorrow. That single step is how momentum begins. Your body is not fragile. It's adaptive, resilient, and waiting for your signal. Age doesn't close the book, it hands you a new pen. write this next chapter stronger than the last. If you found value here, I'd love for you to like this video, share your experience in the comments, and subscribe. This isn't just a channel. It's a community of people who believe science, when applied with consistency, can transform aging into thriving. Let's grow stronger together.